Now take a look at AI and crypto policy in the Trump administration. Two important members of it. David Sachs is the White House AI and crypto czar. Michael Kratsios is the director of the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy. Good morning to both of you.
Yeah.
Let's talk crypto policy. We had Brian Armstrong sitting in this seat just yesterday on this market regulation bill, which seemed like it was getting super close, and then seemed to get pulled at the last minute, in part because he and I think some other members of the crypto community pulled it. I imagine they were calling people like you during all of this.
Well, yeah, there's an issue right now, the so-called yield issue of whether stable coins are going to be able to pay yield. Right. There's a difference of opinion between the crypto industry and the banking industry.
And where do you sit?
I'm in favor of reaching a solution and facilitating a compromise so that we can get a bill for market structure on the president's desk. We've seen this movie before, back in August when the stablecoin bill passed, the Genius Act. It died about 3 times before it finally passed and was signed into law. So there's a process here that has to be worked through.
What's a potential compromise look like? Because it looks like the banks don't want it to allow it to happen, and it looks like the crypto guys are adamant that it happened, that they'd be able to compete. How do you split the baby, I guess?
Well, I think the banks have to recognize that that yield is already a feature of the Genius Act that passed and was signed into law in August. So if the bill ends up dying, then there will be a form of rewards. And so I understand their point of view, but again, if there's no deal, then they're going to lose on this issue. So I think it's in their interest to work something out. At the same time, I would urge some of the crypto folks to be a little bit, to see the bigger picture. Yes, I understand that yield is philosophically important to them, but so is getting an overall market structure bill. So I think if everyone has an incentive to be reasonable here, I think, and if they do that, we'll get a bill.
But is it a bill comes and then there's a sort of longer fight that continues, do you think, afterwards?
No, I mean, it's already passed the House.
Right.
So
No. I mean, that you sort of get this compromise. The banks don't love it. Crypto doesn't love it. And then over time, after this bill if this gets signed, then there's sort of a continued fight to get even more.
Well, a good compromise is everyone leaves a little bit unhappy, right? But I think what's going to happen is that after market structure passes, the banks are going to get fully into the crypto industry. So we're not going to have a separate banking industry and crypto industry. It's going to be one digital assets industry. And I think
will they be regulated
their opinions are going to evolve over time. And I bet you, over time, the banks like the idea of paying yield because they're going to be in the stablecoin business.
But will they also be regulated the same way? And I guess that's a big, I mean, the banks will say, hey, if they get to do all the same things we do, how come they don't get regulated the same way?
Well, I guess because they're offering slightly different products, right? Yeah. So, but I mean, everyone offering the same product should be regulated in the same way, and we want to get to that harmonization.
Can we talk AI for a minute? I know Jensen's here from NVIDIA, and there's been a big question about whether their chips should be sold to China. How they should be sold. It seemed like they were going to be allowed, then they weren't going to be allowed, then they were. It's gone back and forth. And I just want to, if you can explain to the viewers what your actual thinking is on this topic, what it really, are you worried about the security? Are you worried about them having too much access? Are you thinking if we get these chips out there, that'll actually, from a competitive perspective, sort of push out the Huawei's of the world? What is the actual sort of strategy behind the White House's view on this?
Well, the latest reporting is that China doesn't want the chips.
Right.
They're not going to let the
That's the next, right. So here we are.
So there's this huge controversy over here about whether we should sell them to China, and then China's saying they don't want them. The reason China doesn't want them is because they want to indigenize chip production. They want to have their own chip industry, and specifically they want Huawei to be the national champion. Now, you asked about our thinking, which is if we can sell a previous generation deprecated chip into the Chinese market and take market share away from Huawei and prevent their scale up, we think there's some value in that. But I think this issue is going to be largely moot because China sees the same thing we do,
and they're not
going to let the chips.
And you think it's a line in the sand. It's not changing, because I know this has gone back and forth now.
This is just where things are right now.
For how many months?
David, the wealth tax notwithstanding, you know what CEOs are feeling out in Silicon Valley, I think. And I think of, I don't know, Gerstner or, I mean, Peter Thiel's been with Trump for a while, but I look at, Elon, Alex Karp Lonsdale, Chamath. The president has embarked on some controversial moves lately, and he's coming to Davos with great consternation among a lot of the elitists and glitterati in Davos. Are CEOs just not speaking up because they think Trump is just crazy, and they're afraid of retribution, Or are things going pretty well, in your view, with the way the president is managing the country?
Well, I think from my point of view, and I think that's the point of view of most of the tech CEOs in Silicon Valley, things are going incredibly well.
They're not just afraid to,
no,
afraid
I don't
to speak
think
up?
So. No, because I talk to them.
You can't speak for all of them. But
no, but I talk to a lot of them.
Can you say that again? Just put it to bed.
No, so look, we talk to a lot of CEOs, some of whom, even off the set, will say things about the president or about the tariff strategy or this or that they're very critical of. And then they don't want to say these things because they worry about whether there will be sort of a retribution either to their business or to them personally or something like that. You've heard this before. I can't be the first person to have ever said this.
Well, let's talk about facts as opposed to vibes.
Right.
So the fact is we're coming off a 5.4% GDP growth in Q4. We're down to, 2.6% inflation, down from the Biden high of 9%.
Right.
The largest productivity increase we saw in Q4 in years. AI is going extremely well. President Trump's been incredibly supportive of the tech industry. I mean, like they haven't seen before. Biden was imposing all sorts of unnecessary regulations. I think the tech industry is very happy with President Trump and the performance of this administration. I haven't heard any of the negative sentiment you're talking about. Right. But look, are there CEOs who are longtime Democrats who've always been the Democrat Party? Yeah, of course there are. And some of those people don't like President Trump, and they never will. But the ones I talk to who are happy about the business environment, they're very happy with the performance of this administration.
Naively, I thought, what a year for the 250th what have we decided what it is? It's semi-quincentennial or something like this, with GDP at multi-year highs, perhaps, and the stock markets at all-time highs, and a secure southern border, all these things. I was ready for a ticker tape parade and some fireworks and stuff, and I was under the impression yesterday, talking to David Rubenstein, that we have lost our way in terms of a country and all the values of our forefathers that made us great.
That's not really what Rubenstein said. He said, as long as
he didn't say it. He was just being asked to say it.
Listen, it's politics. We got Democrats, Republicans, and there's always going to be a lot of partisan rhetoric. And I didn't see that interview. But look, Democrats are going to Democrat. The fact of the matter
Democrats are going to Democrat.
Democrats are Democrat. But the business environment, I think, has not been better for years. You see that with the GDP growth rate, with the inflation rate, the unemployment rate is still historically low. I mean, everything seems to be going extremely well. And I think we're poised for an even bigger year in 2026. So
the flip side, David, is invading sovereign nations, or the threat of doing it. If it's just to negotiate a good deal, it's one thing. But if it were to come, do you know what's in the president's mind? I'm going to ask him, but do you know what's in the president's mind? How far he would take this for Greenland or in other contexts?
Well, no one can speak for the president, but what I would say is that what the president has expressed is a desire to acquire Greenland, which is something that American politicians have been interested in for 150 years. Great Secretary of State William Seward tried to acquire Greenland. He acquired Alaska, couldn't get Greenland done. FDR and Truman were interested in acquiring Greenland. This is actually an old idea that President Trump has made new again. So we'll see what happens.
Hey, Michael, let's talk a little bit about AI and what the administration is doing in terms of pushing some of these things and some of the pushback you've gotten when you testified before Congress, too, just in terms of the deep fakes and the partnership with XAI. Where do you see it, just from the administrative point of view, of making sure you're pushing some of these technologies without bringing some of the negative implications along with that?
Absolutely. In our AI strategy released in July, the action plan, the first pillar is about innovation. How can the U.S. continue to innovate and make sure that the next great AI discoveries are made here in the United States? And a big piece of that is creating a regulatory environment that can allow AI to thrive. And the president, in his speech that he gave in July, spoke very specifically about this patchwork problem, where if every state has its own set of AI rules, make it extraordinarily difficult for entrepreneurs and young companies that want to thrive in the U.S. to somehow deal with all these different state regs.
Understood, but the big issue that comes if there's not a federal regulation that's set up at that point is, there's no way of kind of pushing back on any of the negative things that happen, whether that be children that get involved with some of these things, whether that be applications where it's used for pornography or something along those lines. How do you do that?
You're completely correct. In an executive order that the president signed in December, where he directed David and I to work on a legislative proposal in it, he specifically mentioned state rules around children, and that's something that we continue to want to protect and think about. The president, as you know, signed the Take It Down Act earlier this year, and it's something that's on top of our minds. And I think a challenge that a lot of this preemption legislation faced in last year was that it was just sort of the preemption without anything else.
Right.
And I think what Dave and I are going to be working through a lot this year is figuring out what that other piece is and how we can make that balance right.
Yeah, and just to say a word about the problem here, you've got 1,200 bills right now going through state legislatures to regulate AI. Right. It's a little bit of a knee-jerk reaction. And regardless, you've got 50 states running in 50 different directions. That's going to create a patchwork problem. The big tech companies are always going to be able to figure out how to comply because they have so many lawyers. But for our small tech companies, our startups, our entrepreneurs, that's going to be a huge compliance burden. Imagine if, in order to create a startup, you now have to hire lawyers in 50 different states.
Right, we don't want that.
Yeah, that's the thing we want to solve.
What we've seen with social media, though, is that it was never fully regulated because there wasn't some way to kind of get at it, and so it's always been kind of self-enforcement by the companies themselves, and that doesn't always work brilliantly.
Yeah, and what we've heard from Capitol Hill is that you can't replace something with nothing. So the idea of preempting the states without having a replacement, not going to work, but we're going to try and see if we can come up with a consensus view, with the Hill on let's call it a lightweight legislative framework for AI.
We got to go, but what do you think is happening in California? Wealth tax. Are you in Texas now officially? What's going on here? It's official.
Yeah,
just to make sure. So what do you think is going to happen?
Well, look, let me just say, I've been in California for 30 years. It was painful to leave. I had no problem paying one of the highest taxes in the country. I think it's 13.3%. But this is different. This is not a tax. This is an asset seizure. This is saying that we're going to take 5% of everything you own, whether you're paid up on your taxes or not, whether your assets are realized or unrealized. Never been anything like this before in American history. People are trying to minimize it by saying it's a one-time. It's not a one-time.
That truly is something different.
That is different.
In the last 250 years.
It's different. It's not a one-time. It's a first time. And if they get away with it, there'll be a second time and a third time. And this will be the beginning of something very new and different in this country, which is asset seizures. Whenever a state or a majority decides, hey, we don't like somebody or we don't like a group of people, we're just going to take their stuff. That's a violation of property rights.
Do you think it's going to pass, and do you think that the Supreme Court ultimately would uphold it?
Well, I think there's a good chance of it getting on the ballot, and then from there, I think it's probably there is a good chance of it passing. I can't say for sure.
Some of the polling that they just released showed 48% in favor, 36% opposed, and the rest.
Newsom doesn't sign it, though, does he? Or would they would override it, or is that?
Newsom cannot override it. He said he's opposed to it, but what his ability to affect it is very limited because it's a ballot initiative. Now, will the Supreme Court ultimately find it unconstitutional?
And it's
good chance of that, but that's years and years and years from now. So, the damage is already being done right now in the state.
Are you surprised that people like Jensen and others have said we're staying in the state? Sam Altman saying he's staying in the state?
No, because they've got large companies in the state, and California's network effect is powerful, and that's why progressives think they can get away with this. But for a lot of other people whose businesses or situations are more flexible, they're leaving. And it is doing tremendous damage to the state. And I do think that even though Newsom ultimately came out against it, the time for him to vocally oppose this was a month ago, and he should have been very clear that the powers that be in the state. He
was against it a month ago. I interviewed
but
him.
Not vocally.
He was out there. He said he was
not vocally. He needed to come out a month ago and reassure everybody and say, listen, we are going to fight this thing. The whole Democratic Party establishment in California is going to make sure this doesn't happen. He didn't do that, and now roughly $1 trillion of net worth has left the state. That is going to put a huge hole in the tax collections of the state.
We don't want the president talking about Elizabeth Warren too much on the phone, having these friendly conversations, because this is next, right? Who knows? I mean,
it's
10% credit card.
It's a scary direction for the country. I mean, look, there's a lot of ways to tax rich people if that's what you want to do. But crossing over into asset seizures and confiscations
we probably
is a whole
should
new
do
territory.
something about the people that live high on the hog on loans and founders that never pay taxes.
You could do something on loans.
Although it's not going to help, we got to tax it. It's a.
But look,
solve our problem.
Here's the question that people are not asking, which is really important, which is why does the state of California need so much money? Right? It's got a $350 billion budget. The budget has doubled over the last decade, 2.5 times the rate of inflation. Okay? And we know that there is a huge amount of fraud going on in the budget that no one has even scratched the surface of. Newsom has vetoed audits that would get to the bottom of some of that fraud. Why would you ever do that?
David,
we need audits
Medicaid
now.
Medicaid 0 to 100. Everybody's covered. with Medicaid.
Well,
it's
been
not federal, but there's a way that it's done because money is fungible and it's covered.
But my point is, before you propose new and unprecedented taxes, I think you have an obligation to taxpayers to make sure that their money is being well spent. The first place to look is with all this fraud. We've seen it in Minnesota. Was it $8 billion of daycare fraud? One program in one state. You know, everyone's seen the tip of the iceberg graphic where the tip is Minnesota and the iceberg under the water is California. We all know the fraud is there. Root that out first before you go back to taxpayers for more and drive job creators out of the state.